Okay, so hello everybody. It's Mr. Ed Rosenberg again, and this afternoon I am speaking to CJ from Amazon Sellers Lawyers. CJ, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ed. It's great to be back on your show and your program.
Yeah, okay, I've been really busy, so people don't realize the time this takes. Actually, it takes time and planning with two people and then editing. So
Shows have been great. I saw
yeah,
the interview with the woman who's creating the insurance policy. I mean, just really, really great information for sellers.
yeah, a little too rough on her. Or...
No, I thought you were terrific. I think she knew her stuff, and you asked great questions that we need to know.
Yeah, we need to know what it covers. So okay, so I asked you. Somebody posted in a Facebook group. Somebody posted an article which you wrote, and something which I've never heard of, and I think this will be news to almost 100% of Amazon sellers, that when you get suspended, there's still another option. I'm not talking about going to the Supreme Court and going to The Hague.
No litigation, no going to Luxembourg.
Oh,
Sellers, we know you guys know the drill by now. You know, you're writing to sell a performance or product quality. If that doesn't work, then you go into a policy team. If that doesn't work, you go into a Bezos escalation. If that doesn't work, you can actually take the decision right out of Amazon's hands, right under your terms of service, and file for arbitration with the American Arbitration Association for whatever issues you have with Amazon, whether they're suspending you and they won't reinstate you, whether they lost your inventory, whether they've falsely accused you of having related accounts, whether they've kicked you out of the Amazon Associate program, whatever the issues are, if you can't get a result that's acceptable to you from Amazon, you have every right on the U.S. accounts to take them to arbitration.
okay, now what is arbitration? I mean, any person could take another person to arbitration?
No, what arbitration is, it's a way of, it's almost like going to court without going to court. Like normally, as an American, you have a right to sue someone who you think has broken a contract or done wrong to you. But your terms of service with Amazon say, no, you're going to give up your right to sue. And instead, if you have a dispute, you must go to arbitration. So, Amazon gives us a lot of great tools and a lot of great opportunities. And this is really another great way they've given us to resolve disputes without spending 2 or 3 years and tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so if you really look into your terms of service, this is really a great way of resolving disputes when they're being incredibly unreasonable or unresponsive.
Right. Now, what would be the incentive for Amazon to put that into the contract?
All right. It's really great for both sellers and Amazon. It's great for Amazon because there's 1.6 million sellers. And if they actually had to litigate against each seller that they did wrong, they would get buried in litigation. For us, it's one lawsuit, one lawsuit, one lawsuit. But for Amazon, it would be millions of lawsuits. So it's really good for them. They limit their loss and their ability to get dragged into court. For the sellers, I think it's absolutely awesome because for a fairly minimal amount of money and for a short period of time, you can get your issues resolved by someone else. And Amazon follows the order. I mean, all the bad things about Amazon, when an arbitrator says, reinstate the account, write this check, put them back in that program, Amazon does it. They follow the orders because I think internally they want to preserve the arbitration agreement for sellers around the world.
Now, do you know personally of one case where that happened? Amazon said, have a nice life, and you've gone to arbitration and it's been reinstated.
Yes. When you go to arbitration, everything's involved in the arbitration is confidential. So I can't get into into specifics about any of the arbitrations we're involved in. But absolutely, we file it. You go to the arbitration. Just like before getting involved in really focusing on Amazon sellers, I was a trial lawyer for almost 15, 20 years. I've always represented entrepreneurs, but I did tons and tons of trials in other areas of the law. So you go to the arbitration and I would prep my seller or the bookkeeper or their brand manager, whatever the issue is, and I'll prepare them to testify because I know how to do that from being a trial lawyer. And so the seller or the seller's staff will testify and lay out our case, how we did nothing wrong. We did not have related accounts. we delivered $500,000 of inventory, and this is how we packaged it, and this is how it got lost, and we present our case. And then Amazon's lawyer, who are generally not trial lawyers, I mean, they're really good people, and I got to know some of them, really fine lawyers, but I don't think they were ever really in the trenches of being in a courtroom, and they get to cross-examine you. Then Amazon puts on a witness or two, and my experience is they're not really prepared. And Amazon has this whole mentality how they don't tell us things. You know, how many times, I know I'm going on and on.
No, this is great.
How many times have sellers seen, we're doing A, B, and C, we're not going to tell you why, because that's our business model. We're not going to reveal our secrets to you.
They have no secret.
Right. But their witnesses, you know, Amazon has a very structured way about doing business and training their people. Some of us who work with former Amazonians, you can recognize it in 5 minutes. Their witnesses seem to testify in the same place. So when I'm cross-examining an Amazon witness, I am very confident that at some point I will get that witness to say, I'm not answering that question, or that's a trade secret.
Mm-hmm.
And once they do that, once their own witness refuses to testify, it's like the game is over.
Right.
You go to the arbitrator, I move to strike all of their testimony because he's refusing to answer. Unless Amazon has another witness right now, we should win.
Right. I mean, I think there's this misconception that, you know, seller support and seller performance, they're like all-knowing geniuses, and they're really not. They're just seller support to, you know, move the seller performance. And yeah, so I always say with seller performance, I think people overthink. You know, they think that you know, I think part of it is because they're all emotionally invested, but they think that seller performance are these all-knowing geniuses who can never do wrong, and it's just not true.
No, they're just, you know, I think
they're human beings.
They're human beings. I think especially the people in India who are reading what we write, they're really trying to do the right thing. They don't have a whole lot of time, so I don't knock them. But this is more for the seller who has done the plan of actions, responded to the incessant emails for information, already did all the more efficient ways of getting back on. This is when you've hit a brick wall and Amazon has told you, go jump in a lake, or we're not refunding you for your inventory, okay, or you're just simply wrong. You don't have to stop there. I think all those ways should be tried before you go to arbitration, because they're cheaper and they're faster and they're more efficient. And if you can get on with a plan of action or two, that's the best thing in the world. But if you can't, or you're out tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory, or they just are telling you, I'm sorry, you know, you're gone, you know, you don't have to take that as a final answer. You have a right to settle that dispute with the American Arbitration Association.
Now, how long? I mean, this is like this is great stuff. How long does the process take? Like, you file the case and then they say get back to me in 6 months. Like, how does it go?
Okay, the process isn't great, but it's not terrible either. If you compare it to litigation, which is going to take anywhere from 1 to 3 years, or even a year and a half in a federal court, it's much better. We're seeing it takes about 3 to 3.5 months from beginning to end. From the moment you call us and you hire us and we draft what's called your demand for arbitration, we send it out the door to the time you get a decision, and Amazon follows that decision, you're looking 3 to 3.5 months. Mm-hmm. And there's steps in between. But if you're out, if you're dead in the water anyway, right, you're not doing business anyway. So once you're dead in the water, I think this is a great way to get back your account, to get back your reviews, to get your inventory. I mean, sometimes you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in inventory that they're saying that you can't have anymore. And so I guess to answer your question, it's roughly 3 to 3.5 months from beginning to end.
Right. So, and how much does something like this cost?
Well, it depends on how much you're seeking. Like, if you're seeking reinstatement and financial damages up to $75,000, the filing fee is $1,550, and that goes to the American Arbitration Association. We're doing these under flat fees. So in that scenario, our flat fee would be $2,500. So for roughly $4,000, that's the entire cost. Mm-hmm. As the amount you're seeking, if you're seeking $300,000 or $500,000 in lost inventory or lost profits, The costs go up in terms of the American Arbitration Association. You can see the schedule on their website. And if anyone wants it, I could always send the link or send the dollar amount. And also, our fees are going to go up because the more you're seeking, usually the more complex and more time-consuming the case. But every case is different. If you have a seller who's in like health and beauty, and they're selling tons and tons of low-price items, it's going to take more of our time. If you have a seller who's selling more high-end items, it's going to take less. Some sellers are much more organized and they have the data, and therefore our time is less and our cost is less. But if we really have to go in and really put everything together, it's a bit more. It all kind of goes by how much time it's going to take.
Right. So let me ask you this: by arbitration, like I know I was actually on jury duty, and the lawyer there explained that there's not beyond the shadow of. I'm only kidding.
Don't tell everybody
I'm
that.
only kidding. No, so there was beyond. So they said they actually enjoyed it, and they said there isn't this. It's not beyond the shadow of a doubt. It's just a preponderance of evidence.
Nowhere near.
Right.
Nowhere near.
That's for jury duty. So no. So I'm saying, let's say I come to an arbitrator, and there's one, there are cases which you and I know about where they dispose millions of dollars of goods. Now Amazon could say, well, here's the agreement. We sent you an email, but a regular normal person knows that before you dispose a few $1 million, maybe you make a phone call or you send a letter. So will an arbitrator say that, yeah, fine, the agreement was that after 90 days you could dispose, but you made no effort and you didn't use common sense, or was it just strictly the letter of the law?
Well, two things. One, the beyond a reasonable doubt is for criminal cases only because someone's freedom is at stake. All civil cases in New York are a preponderance, which means 51% versus 49%, and you win. In most states, it's called different names, but that's it. As long as your proof is a higher quality than the other side, it's more likely that you are giving a straight story, then you should win. It's a much, much lower burden of proof than in a criminal case. When it comes to what's going to happen with like destroyed inventory, it's rarely so cut and dry, right? There's rarely a seller who says, yes, I received the email and I just ignored it, right? Usually there's something. The email didn't arrive. It went into spam. They never really sent it. Or, I sent them an email saying we're in the middle of doing a plan of action or an appeal or an escalation, and there's some back and forth, and it's really Amazon, the right hand, not knowing what the left hand is doing. So then it goes in front of an arbitrator who's using more of a reasonable standard. Like the arbitrators these are not Amazon inductees, the arbitrators. Okay? They're lawyers. They've been involved in commercial matters. Some have some experience with, online commerce. Some don't. But they're also not so inclined to see things as one-sided as Amazon's agreement makes them out to be. Because that agreement, I believe, that agreement is going to fail. Okay? It's so terribly one-sided that if and when it's challenged, I don't think it's going to hold up. But we're not at that stage. We're in front of an arbitrator. So if Amazon says basically we can do anything we want, right? I argue we have a body of law really in every state in the country if we need it that says, you know what? If the agreement is so one-sided, it's not enforceable. Mm-hmm. Right back to what is reasonable and looking at the facts. And then you're looking at who's going to testify. Our sellers, they know their stuff. They know their metrics. They know the deliveries. They know how to send the stickers in. They know the weights. And they kind of know when they're getting screwed over. And when finally you hit a brick wall, this is the way to go. If your account is valuable to you, this is the way to go. If you've lost enough inventory to make the investment in it worthwhile. If you lost $5,000 worth of inventory and the arbitration is going to cost you $4,000, it doesn't make a lot of sense. We would tell you, just eat the loss. But if you want your account back, this is your route. You don't really have a choice anymore. You've been compelled to do this.
Right. Now, would Amazon ever say, like a lot of times, you sue somebody and then they're like, whoa, and they settle. So is that possible? That'll happen, that you send
it is possible. Again, I can't talk about any individual case, but again, the lawyers who work for Amazon who get these type of issues, they're good people. So I could definitely foresee that being a possibility, going forward. And I can't say enough. The lawyers that we've gone against have just been just really terrific lawyers.
Right. And I'm sure the sellers are terrific sellers. It's just you're stuck in this system.
Yeah, you're stuck, and you're stuck because they keep saying no, no, no. Some of you're getting the robotic, the emails that appear to be robotic. And I think ultimately that, there's a certain level of staff at Amazon making decisions on different things. So I think maybe when it gets to the arbitrations, another set of eyes looking at it. Then also it becomes not just a unilateral decision, it's what can you prove?
Right. And related accounts is probably very interesting.
Related accounts are great.
Yeah, related accounts, they probably have nothing to say because I mean, I could just imagine they probably just have like a deer in headlights look when you tell them that I'm not related and I don't know what you're talking about, but they're not going to reveal anything.
Well, again, you can't get into specifics, but you can imagine that this culture of keeping things so secret, and all of a sudden, right, there's a stranger from outside saying, you know what, tell me all of the different ways that you guys have to link accounts. And you can imagine what the responses are.
Right, no way. Okay, very good. Now, where did this take place? Like in a court? Where did this take place?
Well, a lot of these can occur telephonically. What you do when you file for your demand for arbitration, you send it to the American Arbitration Association central office, and you also send it to Amazon, has a very special address just for these papers, and you send it there. And in your demand, you get to pick where you want it to occur. We always pick New York, regardless of where our seller is located. I pick New York because I think it's the greatest chance that we have of having some common ground or some common experience with the arbitrator. Also, it means my clients don't have to send me any place.
Right.
I don't charge for like the extra hours to travel, but I do expect the clients to pay for the airfare and then one night in a reasonable hotel.
Right.
So we always pick New York. Amazon then has 17 days to respond, and they have the right to move it to Washington State. Okay. So far, they haven't exercised that right. So far, their response has been sometimes after the 17 days. Now, the location doesn't necessarily even really matter because a lot of these arbitrations can be done by telephone. We had one where, I was in New York, another person was in a different part of the world. Amazon's lawyers were in Seattle. I think their witness might have been down in California, but it's all telephonically. You send in your exhibits, by email, so everyone has a copy of it. You refer to them, and everyone's looking at the same page. But it's either, we always ask for New York, but it really can end up either being where we're located, which is New York, where the seller's located, which could be anywhere, in the United States, or Amazon has the right to move it, to Washington State.
And the whole thing takes place in one day?
Yeah, one day.
One day, and then one arbitrator. Who's this arbitrator? Like, who is he?
Well, I guess it could take longer than one day. So far, all of ours, I don't expect any of ours to go past a day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sometimes it's more than a couple hours, but I certainly don't expect any to go into 2 or 3 days. Because as a trial lawyer, you want to boil everything down to something that's easily digestible. Our culture is very sound bites, make America great again, right? It's effective. It's short. It's concise. You remember it. And a trial lawyer's skill is persuading the arbitrator, and they're people too. But I guess I forgot your question already. I'm sorry.
Right, but I would say a majority of times, once it gets to that point, if the guy's doing the expense and he has information, I would imagine he does. He probably has it inside out. I would say 90% chance the guy's going to win.
I can't give percentages. It's terribly unethical for a lawyer to give percentages. But one, we're not going to take cases where we think we're going to lose. Okay. And number two, I think that most of the sellers who are going that route really know their business. And so if they're really going it, they're right. They got screwed over by Amazon. They lost their inventory. They should not have been suspended. On the related accounts issue, it also becomes a question of the burden of proof, right? On any related accounts issue, my client's going to testify there was no related accounts. One account, this is what they are. If they're from Williamsburg or Borough Park or any populated area, you say, you know what? There's probably 100 sellers on my block. I only have one account. And then the burden's going to shift to Amazon to show they have related accounts. And how are they going to do that without revealing their special? So I think those if you've lost your account for related accounts, I think these are ripe for arbitration because Amazon is not giving in. The reinstatement rate that we experience, and my understanding is pretty low when you're accused of having related accounts. This is the way to go if the account's important to you.
Right. Okay, so that's right. So I always said, and this is sort of like that idea that that once it gets to a point, past escalation, there should be some kind of body. Like it shouldn't just be Amazon's decision.
It's here. It's right there in the terms of service. It exists. We already have it. It takes a bit of time, but it's much better than going to court.
Yeah. I mean, it's much better than going to court, but it still sounds like it's going to take you 4 months, and it's not 4 months from when you're suspended. It's from 4 months when they stopped responding. So it's really
once we're retained, we'll get the demand for arbitration out the door within a day or two.
Right, but that's a demand for arbitration, but no one's going to do that until they did all escalations and they were denied.
And in most cases, you probably should do those other steps first.
Of course,
If you get reinstated on a plan of action, it's much more efficient. I mean, listen, the bottom line, the goal is to get back to selling or to get your money or your product back, to get back into doing business. You don't want to be stuck in litigation. So this is a really great thing for sellers to know about because I don't think sellers know that I think when they say that once Amazon shuts the door, you're done. And it's not necessarily the case. You can take the decision making out of Amazon's hands.
Now, why can't it be in the UK too?
The UK is odd. The UK agreement doesn't have the same provisions. The UK agreement has changed over the years, where it used to say the 2012 and 2013 version said if you have any disputes, you have to go to the non-exclusive jurisdiction of Luxembourg. Okay? They've since tightened up the language and said you have to go to court in Luxembourg.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a UK issue, we're now trying to find firms that we can partner with in Luxembourg because there are really some significant losses that people are taking where they're stuck going to Luxembourg. But as of right now, we're not ready for that. But that's the difference in the UK account in the US.
Right, so the UK verification issue, this wouldn't help.
No. If you're an UK account, you gotta go to Luxembourg.
I'm convinced there's like one guy working in the UK verifications team and he like works 1 hour a day. Takes him like 2 months to respond to an email.
And always says no.
And he has no personality. Yeah.
It's very funny imagining what the other person is like like we do this every day with plans of action. We conference them to figure out what are they looking for? What are they thinking about? And it's sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's frustrating. What is the other guy even thinking about or looking for?
Right. Okay. I think this is an incredible avenue. And well, technically, Amazon can tighten up the agreement. They can tighten up the agreement whenever they want.
Well, I don't see a way of giving sellers no remedy. I mean, the agreement is so terribly one-sided already, but it has to have some remedy. If there's no remedy, then you can sue in court. Okay, and there's been a ton of litigation all the way up to the United States Supreme Court regarding arbitration agreements and which ones are and which ones are not enforceable. Like when it comes to your cell phone, there's been a ton of litigation about it. And the United States Supreme Court held that arbitration agreements are enforceable. But I don't think you can deprive someone of any remedy. That would be terribly unfair. I don't think that would be enforceable. So I think arbitration is going to remain.
So I got 2 more questions. So how does it work? All right, so the arbitrator says reinstate him, and then 2 seconds later they get reinstated? A minute later, a week later?
No, it's taken about a week to 10 days. But again, Amazon is doing what they should be doing in terms of these decisions. So I'd say probably a week to 10 days for the full order to be in effect. I understand sometimes there's logistical issues on Amazon's side, reinstating an account that's already been closed, or like you can't even sign on.
Right.
But no, in fact, when we wrote the Amazon Law Library, I wasn't really thinking about this issue, but we went back through it, and Amazon follows the orders, whether it's in court by arbitration, or we haven't seen any evidence of retaliation for doing this.
No, they wouldn't do that. But what would and how does it work when they have to reimburse for lost inventory? Okay, here's a check, $100,000, or they try to fight it. How does that work? Or you can't say.
I can say that my experience so far is Amazon follows the orders. If they're ordered to pay or reinstate, they do it.
Right, reinstate doesn't really cost them money.
They
But
do fight it hard, though. They got teams and teams of people in Costa Rica, Ireland, India, all over the place. But ultimately, they're a pretty good company. Our sellers make a ton of money, and they
yeah,
follow their own agreements.
yeah, they're a great company because they've made millionaires, millions of millionaires.
I don't know if you've seen it. Also, been doing like this lately. We wrote about an article how they're accepting food stamps and delivering food to impoverished neighborhoods where they can't really get fruit and vegetables. They're training veterans, which I think is awesome since a lot of employers kind of shy away from vets. There's a lot of good there.
Yeah, there's a lot of good. I mean, but just the third part. I tell people when they ask me like, why does Amazon act this way? A lot of them, I say, look, you never went to college. You can barely speak English. You can't write, you can't read, and you're dealing with millions of dollars all because of Amazon.
I try and be a bit more diplomatic usually, but it gives a lot of opportunity to a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity to a lot of people, but it's just a couple of changes we're trying to deal with. Okay, so CJ, that was really phenomenal, and I think this was massive, great news, great work.
I'm looking forward for people calling. I want to preface it. Next week is President's Week. The firm is wide open. Anthony will be here. Our team of paralegals are all here. I'm taking a few days off next week. And one of me or one of the other attorneys will get back to you.
Right. And I mean, it always starts off, Amazon stole my money. And then by the time you get to the whole thing is, well, you don't think you have a case, right?
Yeah. You really have to look at it. And a lot of times it comes up like the number of units lost. Plus the initial loss may have been, 500 units, but then they found 240 and then they shifted another 60 over to you. So we really do, as Amazonians speak, a real deep dive before we file to make sure that it's worthwhile. But just like a few months ago when you talked a lot about, the new health dashboard and everyone was complaining, there's no warning, there's no warning. Now the complaint that there's no place else to go is gone. You have someplace else to go. You can take that decision right out of Amazon's hands if you need to.
Right. Great stuff. I really appreciate it. And we'll be in touch, Zoe. Thank you.
All right. Awesome, Eddie. Thank you.
Bye.